Hey there, it's Crafty Jennabug. It's done. I don't know what else to say. Like, I'm both super happy that it's completed. I have an issue with completing projects. I don't. Usually a project gets about 3/4 of the way done and I decide I'm done with it. Yeah, it has to go into the timeout corner and it sits there for a long time until I eventually come back and go, what was I doing with this? So the fact that I actually completed this journal, really, I'm really proud of that. It's become quite thick. There's the back. It doesn't want to stay closed. I've actually had it sitting under a heavy book for a few days, trying to get back to its, trying to get it as flat as possible. I definitely need to allot more space in between the signatures and more space on each side to accommodate. Hopefully the February journal won't be such what is called an alligator mouth. Anyway, so this is done. Oh, I'm already glittering everything. Jeez. Anyway. Glitter. So this is the flip through and review, I guess, video of the making of this journal, going through the process. And so we'll start with the front. This tag I made in Defemember, which was part of it was day 3 of the Defemember prompt list. If you don't know what Defemember is, it is a daily ephemera inspiration prompt list for the month of December, hosted by Louisa Heinzel and Barbara at 49 Dragonflies. I made this using the prompt from day 3. I don't have that list in front of me, so I don't remember exactly what the prompt was, but I remember bright color being part of it. And it's all wintry and it fits, it's snowflakey. So I decided I didn't want the bright color because this journal is themed. The color scheme for this journal is blues and whites and silver and gray. So I wanted to really limit the other colors. Like, yes, I've got the burlap down here on the side, but I thought it went well with like the more brown toned grays. This red would have clashed so much, so I decided to put it in this front pocket where you can't really see it. All you see is this cute little penguin peeking at you, and it makes you kind of want to go, what's up in there? So that's a long explanation as to why this is here. So we open up. Now, I have done a few little things since the last video. I've done them off camera. I may even do more at some point, but for now, I'm calling this journal complete. This was the little booklet, or the leaflet. This is the leaflet. I made one of the videos in this series. I have prompt jars that I created. I had so much fun during Defemember creating ephemera using prompts that I made some jars up that have different criteria for me to pull from if I need inspiration. And I utilized the prompt jars in one of the videos in this series. I'll link the playlist down below in case you want to go check that out. And this is one of the pieces of ephemera I created based on those prompts. This was a leaflet, and I think leaves was the prompt. Inside, I've journaled a little bit. This says, I've started a January junk journal series. I plan to decorate pages in it daily for the entire month of January. My eventual goal is to make a journal for each month along with daily decorating. The decorating became a little less daily and a little more like constant. I would sit down at a time and do a few days worth of pages if you go by the 1 page a day. I think I ended up with more pages than days in the month. So I'm going to have to review that later. Like, I had a lot of pages. I think there were, I haven't counted, but there might be like 40 pages. And then I added extra things to them. So yeah, I definitely went into this a little bit, I went hard, I guess is basically the way to say it. I definitely was ambitious. That's the word I was looking for. I was definitely ambitious in this project. I might scale that back a little bit for future journals, but we'll see. I doubt it. This says, this little booklet is the result of using the prompt jars I made in an attempt to keep the Defemorember joy alive. I had so much fun and was so inspired making ephemera from prompts during Defemorember that I really wanted to make some sort of prompt generating thing, and thus the jars were born. I have 3 jars, each with a different theme, material, ephemera type, and focal point. I pull from each jars to get ideas for making ephemera. I added some snowflake stickers. And then this says, the journal is complete. I cannot believe I've managed to stick with it all month long. I've come to think of this project as constant crafting versus daily crafting. Some days I craft, some days I don't, but overall it balances out. I do feel like I'm crafting constantly to get these videos out in a timely manner, but at least I'm having a blast. And it was a blast. This was, honestly, this is the first junk journal I've ever completed. Ever. I have the other journal I made. I've only been doing junk journaling for, it's been less than a year. I think I started back in the summer, and it's winter now. So yeah, it's been about 6 months or so. I can't remember when exactly I started. I'll have to look that up. But the other one is not completed by any means. And that was more of a, I'm going to journal as I'm inspired kind of thing, whereas this was more deliberate. So this tuck spot was made with a the part of the prompts from the prompt jars video. I made a masterboard and did a collage, sewed all over it, and then cut it down into other things. And this tuck spot was one of those. I actually sewed it into the book, which I've never done before, but will utilize in the future. I have a stamped sentiment burr, some snowflake stickers, and then some die cuts, snowflakes, and a rhinestone. You know, that could probably use a rhinestone also. This is another part of the prompt jar projects. It was the prompt polka dots and multi-pocket, and this is actually 4 pockets. I have a little stamped ticket, just a little scrap page that was cute, a stenciled snowflake on some book page, and just thought it looked good peeking out of there. This is a faux postcard that I printed out in a free printable from Pinterest, and Winter Eyes poem on a card. Look at winter with Winter Eyes by Douglas Florian. Look at winter with winter eyes as smoke curls from rooftops to clear cobalt skies. Breathe in winter past winter nose, the sweet scent of black birch where velvet moss grows. Walk through winter with winter feet on crackling ice or sloshy wet sleet. Look at winter with winter eyes, the rustling of oak leaves as spring slowly nears. I'm a big fan of spring, so that particularly resounded with me, although we don't get snow here very often. This next page I stamped on very poorly. The quality of that stamp, I don't know if it was the material behind it, but it didn't stamp very well. I like it. It's just not quite what I was hoping for. And then this is a tuck spot created by, when I was stenciling these snowflakes, whenever I was done with the stencil, I would clean it off on another piece of paper. This one happened to be coffee and tea dyed copy paper. And so I would clean the stencil off, you know, push down and get like the negative from the stencil. And that's what this is. And this is another one of those faux postcards. I just thought they fit in really well in this journal. And you can see where I stitched it in. This page, I really like the way it turned out. I took this really thin paper. It looked homemade, lots of fibers in it, and was ripping it to do a collage and realized it looked, this one right here, it looked like an icicle. And I found this word winter on a free printable I found on Pinterest and glued the icicles underneath it, coated them in glitter, which I'm not sure, yeah, coated them in glitter. And because this piece of copy paper page, because this copy paper page was dyed using the distress sprays, the pigment was lifted by the liquid in the PVA glue, and it ended up making the icicles have a purplish hue, and that was really cool. Then I glued a bunch of glitter down on it as well, and did some white splatters on both of these pages, and you can see the white splatters here turned a little purple because of this was also with the distress spray. This page, I really like it. It's very simple. I used a little bit of collaging, just some, this is from a calendar page, a little bit of sparkly lace, this silver mesh ribbon on the side as a tab, some fabric from the front, and a flower made out of magazine pages with some beads glued in the middle. And that was also, so the prompts from the prompt jars, one of the prompts was flower, so I made a bunch of flowers using magazine cutouts, and beads was another prompt, so I glued beads on them in the center, and there are a few of them throughout this book. This page is pretty simple. I used some candy foil wrapper, and this, I'm not even sure where this came from, probably cut it out of a scrapbook page. I made this tag. I added this little faux postage stamp. It says family, January sentiment, and on the back I wrote, "This page isn't one of my favorites. I don't dislike it, but I don't love it." I am happy with the little collage art page on the opposite page, though. I am in love with the magazine flowers, and I want to cover the world with them. It's true. I love them. They are one of my favorite things ever. I make them all the time, and I just cut out, I collect magazines from friends who no longer need them, and just cut out little pieces of flower. I have a video when I first found the methods. I actually learned from other videos. I know Joey DeFee had one that I used. I can't remember who else, but if I can, I'll link them below if I find them. Here, these are two more stencil negatives. This page I just created to be a journaling page so that I wasn't adding more bulk. I took some paper that had distress spray on it and stamped memories, and glued down a piece of scrapbook paper. It says, "This journal is so thick that I'm having a hard time writing on this journal page. I might need to allot more space between the signatures of future journals. Maybe that'll help the pages lay a little flatter. I'll try it with the next month's journal." Yeah, it was leaning like this the whole time, so it was a little difficult. Down here I have another snowflake die cut and a rhinestone. This is from a piece of newspaper that you'll see the image of later in the book. I just took a little bit and made a tag. Here, another faux postcard. And I actually made this a tuck spot as well, so I could tuck something up there. This is also a tuck spot. This is part of that masterboard, and just some random pages, random scrap pieces, just from other pages in the journal. I had this number 3 cut out from a magazine, and I stenciled 3 snowflakes I didn't realize those were the same. Oh well. I stenciled 3 snowflakes because I did the number 3. Or maybe it was the other way around. Maybe I added the 3 because I did the 3. Can't remember. But either way, I think it works. I kind of want something down here, though. I don't know. It's done. I'm leaving it alone. This page is paper that was dyed with the distress sprays and paint, acrylic paint. And this blue triangle is the flap of an envelope from further in the journal. I had this piece of lace that just happened to be the right size and shape and just glued it down. I've got another one of those flowers from the prompts. You can see the beads in it. And I glued this down with just a strip of glue here to make it a tuck spot in 2 different places. I only have one thing in there though. So, this is one of my absolute favorite pages. This says, "Winter is on my head, but eternal spring is in my heart." And yeah, that's true. This page is one of my absolute favorites. Using the envelope flap as a double tuck spot makes me really happy, as does the combo of lace and magazine flower. Chef's kiss. Tell me what you really feel. Next page, we have the little envelopes flying around, the airmail, as it were. This one was really fun. I made 2 little pockets as another piece of the collage masterboard and some random paper I found in my scraps. And I used scrap paper to make some little envelopes. This one I used some Tim Holtz stamps on both of the envelopes. And this has a little snowflake sticker, and it says smile. Mostly because these make me smile. Oh, the glue's coming undone. Got some lace, more of that foil, some puffy stickers, airmail, and some more stamps looking like an envelope. This was just a piece of scrap paper that I painted. I think I cleaned my brush on. More snowflake stickers. And it says, "These tiny envelopes in their tiny pockets make me smile," which is why the other one said smile on it. Very cute. That one went like this. This page, I glued this little page down to make a side pocket. I've added some snowflakes, another stencil negative. This one I glued these rhinestones and pearls, more rhinestones, making them kind of like flowers, a little bit of collage, and then I added the word patience because there was a lot of glue drying on this page and it was a lesson in patience. In here, this was part of a scrapbook page that had some, it was a Christmas themed scrapbook page, but it had colors that I wanted, except this says gold. Oh well. It says patience, an important trait to master, especially as a junk journaler and in other parts of life, but I was feeling like equating it to junk journaling. Glue takes a while to dry, as do paint, texture, paste, ink, etc. I definitely learned to embrace the waiting while making this book. Yeah. And these are more pages that had distress ink sprayed on them, and then I've got some silver splatters on there as well. This page this was from a scrapbook page. I have a lot of scrapbook papers, so it's a recurring theme. Made a little collage around, a little bit of accent papers behind it, more of that really thin paper. These were just some scrapbook paper cut into tag shapes, and I journaled on this one. These pages were a lot of fun to make. I've never sewed an envelope to a journal page before. I was inspired by Louisa Heinzel. She sewed envelopes folded over journal pages in the journal she made for Barbara for Defemember. I love how these turned out, especially the flap folded over to make a tuck spot right here. Now, if only I could prevent any more star glitter from escaping. This star glitter. I wanted the stars to look like snowflakes falling. So, like I said on that, this is an envelope folded over, and I folded the envelope so that the flap was backwards. So like here's the opening of the envelope where the flap would normally come here. I folded it over the other side and then sewed and glued it down so that it created a tuck spot on this side. Another one of the magazine flowers. This one with a piece of confetti and a bead glued on it. You can't see it, but there it is. Here I have another stencil negative. And on the back, I wrote, another prized magazine flower. I love how it looks with its silver tissue paper stem. Right here. Stem. You fold it over. Oh, I lost another star. And here I have a little, this is from a Kleenex box. And it's a poem by T.S. Eliot. The winter evening settles down. The winter evening settles down with smell of steaks in passageways. 6 o'clock, the burnt-out ends of smoky days. And now a gusty shower wraps that grimy scraps of withered leaves about your feet. And newspapers from vacant lots, the showers beat on broken blinds and chimney pots. And at the corner of the street, a lonely cab horse steams and stamps. And then the lighting of the lamps. That's from a book I have. I ripped out a book page. And then I dyed it. I believe I used the blue, the tumbled glass, and brushed across it. And maybe the frayed burlap as well. So that just goes in there and you can see it peeking. And then when you lift the lap, I wanted to make a reason for you to lift this. So I put this like snowy scene down here, more scrap paper. It's really thick, like homemade paper. And then I used some wood-grained scrapbook paper to make a tree so that you'd see it and be like, what the heck is that? Oh, and then wonderful things do happen. And all the stars raining down. So that was fun. This side, the other side of the envelope. And this is a little tag. Oh, I didn't decorate here. Why didn't I decorate there? Oh, well. I mean, I like it. This is a little tag. I found this quote, no matter how long the winter, spring is sure to follow. And I took some of that mesh ribbon. I don't know if you can, how well you can see it. The mesh ribbon, and I did some, I think it's called ruching. I kind of bunched it up and used a hot glue gun to glue it down so it looks like a little ribbon thing. And then I glued down some faux flatback pearls. And I distressed the back to look like a cloudy sky. And I thought it looked really cute right there in that pocket. I can't believe I didn't decorate that flap. Interesting. And then in this pocket I put, this was the artist trading card from Defemember. It was the last day's prompt. And I made a little bird and a little nest. And then I signed it and dated it. And it just lives right here. This page, I took some of the stencils and stencil negatives, ripped them out. I took some of the stencil images and stencil negatives that I had put on different pages. These are book pages. This one was copy paper. Ripped around them and glued them down so it looks like snow. I had this little half page, and I took a piece of an image from later on in the book. It was part I ripped off. You can see part of the bird's tail. And because this was talking about how long the spring, or how long the winter is, I figured I'd add these words: resilience, endurance, and perseverance, to, hold on through the end of winter. I have a hard time in winter, even though where I live doesn't get very cold, doesn't get very snowy. I do have a little bit of like seasonal affectation disorder, where just not being able to go outside and sit in the sun as much, even though it's quite sunny and warm here, and it's temperate here during the winter, sometimes it affects me. And so this is kind of like a little reminder to hold on. The warm weather is coming. I can get back in the garden and really, work the earth, kind of thing. I made a belly band on that little page, and I've got another one of those faux postcards hiding back there. On this, I've had an image from a magazine. It's leaves that are covered in ice, and I put a little washi tape on there. This page, I did more of the stencils and stencil negative images. Tore around them and glued them down. This I left blank. I love it. And I feel like a journal doesn't necessarily need something on every page, especially when a page is this beautiful. So I left that one blank intentionally. Over here we've got the other half of the envelope. Remember the envelope flap from over here? This is the envelope that flap belongs to. I did some collage that I'm really not happy with on this, and then I stamped more of those snowflakes over it. And I used this stencil negative to create a little pocket with this faux postage stamp that came from a printable. And I like it better now. Inside the envelope, this is a piece of thick paper, almost cardstock, that I used distress ink pads on, distress oxide ink pads. I used an acrylic block and smeared the ink on the acrylic block and on here, and added water and dribbled and smeared and made what I thought looked pretty cool. And I added this quote: "January brings the snow, makes our feet and fingers glow," by Sarah Coleridge. On the back, I backed it with some scrapbook paper and I journaled on it. This journal card was decorated using a combination of 3 different Distress Oxide inks: hickory smoke, black soot, and tumbled glass. I smeared each ink pad on an acrylic block, sprayed with water, and let it drip and or smeared the wettened ink on the cardstock. I like the grungy effect this achieved. I'm not so happy with the results of the collage on the envelope, however. I may have fixed it by turning a snowflake stencil negative into a little pocket for a fake postage stamp. So everything I just said. These were the first 2 pages I decorated. This one was the first, this one was the second. And I used part of a goodie bag. I make goodie bags for my daughter's class for different holidays. And this was one of the leftover goodie bags. And it just fit the theme. So I, cut a little pocket out of it and added it here. I added some lace ribbon, another magazine flower with a little rhinestone in the center. Some tissue paper, and I think this is another one of those faux postcards. This was one of my favorites, and I journaled on the back. This page was another lesson in patience. The goodie bag was difficult to get glued into place. The PVA glue just would not hold it. Once I switched to tacky glue, the issue was solved. I'm pleased with the pocket. I wanted the image on whatever I put into the pocket to be visible. This faux postcard was a perfect choice, in my opinion. And that magazine flower, heart. This page was interesting to make. I took some silver tissue paper, which actually features right here as well, and I glued it down. And when I did, I caused a few little rips and wrinkles, and I took some blue acrylic paint and dry brush over it a little bit just to create texture and break up some of that silver. And then I made a snippet roll early on into the series for this journal and added it in here as a belly band. And I used some magazine subscription cards to make a little booklet, and I painted on them and used some washi tape to create the booklet to hold them together. But the magazine subscription cards are really fun. They're just going to get thrown away. And I used distress ink and some silver acrylic ink and watered it down and just made this beautifully grungy thing. And I love it. I love the way this turned out. And I journaled inside. I added some scrapbook paper on the inside and journaled on it. This page was the first I decorated in this junk journal. It all began with the snippet roll, haha. I used parchment paper for the base and collaged along the front. I used stamps directly on the dried collage and also stamped on other pieces of paper before tearing around them and gluing them onto the snippet roll. There and there. Then the snippet roll became a belly band. The background is made from silver tissue paper. I attempted to dry brush blue acrylic paint over the ridges to break up some of the silver. The page tab came from the stash I inherited from Bonnie. She's constantly in my thoughts while I'm crafting. I never had the pleasure of meeting and knowing her, but I feel like she's crafting with me. I'm always inspired when I find little goodies in the stash left to me. Thank you, Bonnie, for the inspiration. Thank you, Kurt and Steph, for trusting me with these beloved supplies. I'll do my best to honor her each time I use anything that came from her. My friend, Kurt, he lost his mom almost 2 years ago. And she just loved to craft. I never had the pleasure of meeting her, but I've been told we would have been very good friends and had a lot in common with our crafting. So it's, after she passed, they were going through all of her things, cleaning out her house and things like that. And they asked me if I would have any interest in her crafting supplies. And I said, absolutely. So I went over there and helped, go through some of the stuff. And it was a generous addition to my craft stash. Very generous addition. And I love going through the stash and being like, oh, cool, this came from Bonnie. And that's, and like I said here, I think of her often when I'm crafting, despite the fact that I never knew her. And I'm always sending gratitude up, This tab right here is something that she made. It was a piece of, I think, not a wallpaper, a paint sample, the little paint cards you get. And she had cut out this tab, and I painted on the back, but before I did, you could see the, I've got another one right here. You could see the sample. Here's a silver one I almost used, and you can see it was a metallic, like Ralph Lauren paint. And yeah, she was always recycling things, repurposing things. There's also a spiral cut out of that same material. And I think I've got a blue spiral in here also. Yeah, another piece. She was probably a junk journaler from what I've gathered. But I always feel so honored whenever I use anything that came from her stash, which was quite expansive. So thanks again, guys, for trusting me with this stuff. They both watch my videos. I've been friends with Steph for 30 years. I'm dating myself, but I don't even care. Like, we've been friends for a really long time. And the fact that they thought of me and trusted me, like, really resounds with me. And like I said, I think about that a lot. So I really wanted to mention her in this journal, especially when I'm pulling things directly from her stash. So thanks again, guys. Now that we've gotten all heavy, let's go back to the journal. This is the back of that tab. It has a lot of texture in it. It's very gritty and I love it. And I made a tuck spot using more of that image. You'll see the bird later, but it was like a winter scene with a beautiful bird on it. I took some more die cuts and added more of the pearls with the rhinestones around it to make it look like a flower. I made a tag out of some really thick paper. I used the Distress spray stains, or I used the Distress oxide spray and the Distress spray stain to decorate it, and some white and silver splatters. Added a little bit of a accent scraps around the quote, "To appreciate the beauty of a snowflake, it's necessary to stand out in the cold," and that's quoted to Aristotle. At the top, I have a Tim Holtz Ideology snowflake charm attached by a tiny little brad, which the brad also came from Bonnie's stash. A lot of the scrapbook paper I have came from her stash. I journaled on the back of this. I love the simplicity of this page. Busy background, contrasting tuck spot, gorgeous snowflake flower, and a lovely tag. I used the Distress sprays to decorate the background of the tag, and once dry, I applied white splatters. A little bit of contrasting paper accents behind the quote, and bam, a lovely page. This is another page with stencil negatives just smeared on it as a way to clean up the stencil and use more of the paint. This was a scrapbook paper, and I took the die cuts, the negative space around the die cuts, the leftover paper, and cut around the imprint, glued some paper behind, and just added it in as it is. I thought it looked really cool. Very simple. Same with this page, very simple. I really liked a lot of the blanks page. This is another one that I decorated with Distress sprays and paints, and just had a lot of fun and really loved it. Didn't want to do much to it, so I added this die cut with a rhinestone and some die cut the same silver paper in leaves. Another journal page. The quote down here says, "A good journal entry ought to be a love letter to the world," and that's quoted to Anthony Doerr. This says, "These few pages are full of the quiet stillness that winter brings. I wasn't sure about leaving the pages as blank as I did, but in the end I'm quite pleased with the results. Winter is so strange for me. We don't often see snow here, but the few times I've experienced snow, I was in awe of that feeling. Such an eerie, muffled quality. It's surreal. While I'm happy to live where I do and experience snow as little as I do, I would love to have that feeling more, that contented quietude of winter." This page is very simple. I've got this fold out when I was searching for animal images through magazines, and I have a few old calendars. I found this image of a mountain lion leaping and reaching, and so I put this tag here just to kind of look like it was reaching for it, and made a pocket, and then I just wrote Grace, added a few pearls. This tag is very simple and I like it that way. Added some more of the rhinestone pearl flowers, more of that mesh ribbon, and I journaled on the back. I can't help but feel this page is lacking in some way. I added more pearls on the label to the label on the fold out. I'll have to think on it more. Yeah, I do want something on this tag, but I haven't been able to figure out what. I like the tag as it is though, so I did distress around the edges, but it just feels unfinished. There's a few things in here that feel unfinished, but that's kind of how it goes sometimes when you're making a junk journal, I guess. This page I left blank. I love it. It's a scrapbook page with silver splatters and a silver stencil. It's the front, you can see here, the front of the signature. So that's the first half of the book. The second half, this background is a page of copy paper that I watercolored on and added white splatters. Then I decided to add this lace. It's a die cut. Actually, it came from Bonnie's stash, so thank you. And I received a lot of craft punches. That's what it is. It's a craft punch. I received a lot from her stash, and so every time I use those, I think of her very fondly. But I wanted a little bit of lace kind of accent on the edge of the page. Some black scrapbooking paper. It's like a thick cardstock with a lot of texture. Piece of wood grain paper that I stamped a tree that I made. I made that stamp with my daughter when we were making stamps together in a previous video. More of the craft punches. Added a few snowflake die cuts up here. These snowflakes also came from Bonnie's stash. I've got them. This die cut, or this craft punch, came from her stash. And then like I've got all over here these little guys, this little guy. So another one of those faux postcards, another favorite. And next, this page was a lot of fun to make. I've never done a hole in a page like that before, but I've seen both Louisa Heinzel and Barbara at 49 Dragonflies do some similar pages. I took a piece of scrapbook paper, ripped a hole out of it, and then sewed around it with my sewing machine to make it look like this hydrangea was coming out of the hole and kind of spilling over into the page. I kind of wish I had made it bigger, but I'm not gonna get upset about it. Added some die cut leaves, die cut snowflakes, and I've only glued them down along like the middle so that they would kind of look like butterflies. That was the intent anyway, but it didn't read that way. I've considered adding antenna but I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would work. So I added a snowflake as Winter's butterfly. It's kind of true. This page, I had a little tiny half page with some stencil negatives on it, and I glued it down to make a tuck spot. I added some black ribbon, really thin black ribbon. I tried to do the ruching with it, and then I wasn't really happy with it, so I added this piece of white lace over it, a little label, and some flat back pearls. This tag, I wanted to mix paint pouring, which I have a lot of videos showing, with junk journaling. So I took a piece of cardstock and did some paint pour on it and made a background to use for a tag, and I think I have it in a couple of places in this journal. Took some lace and added it. This came from a scrapbook page, that came from a scrapbook page, this came from a scrapbook kit. It's actually like it's a sticker, but I glued it, and it's a tag topper kind of deal. And I used black scrapbook paper on the back. So no journal space, but it's a beautiful tag. Lots of lace. And the background, I just used some tumbled glass, distress ink, and the stencils to add snowflakes to the background. There's the bird I keep talking about in the winter images, and he fits so well into the theme of the journal. Made him a little like collage nest thing, and I painted some. I used acrylic paint to stencil some snowflakes on this page, and I really like the way it turned out. He's so pretty. He's eating a little frozen berry. This is half of an envelope that I sewed into the signature to make a pocket. I cut off the flap, so that doesn't exist anymore. I took some bubble wrap and some paint. Actually, it was leftover paint from the paint pour for this. I still had some in a cup, and I just put it on my palette and dipped the bubble wrap in it to make a pattern. and then splattered with silver acrylic paint. And I added the silver ink or silver paint maybe along the edges. I can't remember which one it was exactly. And on this side, also with the bubble wrap images and the silver outline, the silver splatter. This is a puffy sticker I got from the Dollar Tree. This is a die cut I cut out with my Cricut machine and on some blue cardstock and just some spare thread and just glued it all down. This is a big part of the collage masterboard from the prompt. And I added some stamps, some faux stamps, and this little like checklist. I wasn't sure what to write on it, but I made a cool tag. And on the back, I added this moth I cut out from a piece of scrapbook paper. It said, "This is another favorite spread. I love how random it is while also seeming intentional. I really enjoy having envelope pockets like this. I'll definitely utilize this technique in the future." So that goes like that. I specifically put this moth here so that it would peek out. And I love it. More of the snippet roll on a tuck spot. I glued this one down, I think. I did not sew it in. No, I glued it down. But I sewed around it before I glued it down. This was another part of the prompts from my prompt jar. Coin envelope, house. I think that was it. I think it was just coin envelope and house. So I made a coin envelope. I used washi tape to seal the edges. Found this house on a piece of scrapbook paper, splattered some white on there, splattered some white acrylic paint on there to make it look like snow. This side I used a little cardstock circle cut out to hold it closed, and in here I just have a card from card. I made a cardstock. Just a tag, envelope insert kind of thing. And I used some of those silver snowflakes, just glued them to one side. And on this side I have some copy paper that I stamped. I'm not sure who made this stamp. It might be in that video. But I stamped like a faux newspaper and distressed it with the frayed burlap. And that just goes in there. This is another piece of paper that I watercolored on. I used Distress Oxide spray and watercolor and acrylic paint to kind of make like a wintry scene. I added this pocket with scrapbooking paper. I've got some texture paste here and here through the stencil. Little sentiment that says "Be true to yourself," which is funny because I did not make this. This came from a printable that Barbara at 49 Dragonflies offered when she reached 50,000 subscribers. And as soon as I saw it, I had to print it out. And since it's encompasses all, it has the printable is 4 journal cards, one representing each season, so they will make more appearances in my junk journals as I go along through the year. It says, "Winter is not a season, it's a celebration." And this owl is it's just so beautiful, and the colors fit beautifully. I had to do it. So on the back, I wrote, "This journal card is a free printable offered by Barbara at 49 Dragonflies. She offered it as a thank you for hitting 50,000 subscribers. As soon as I saw it, I fell in love." The page had 4 journal cards, each representing a different season, so I'll be sure to feature one in my journals as the seasons change. Thank you, Barbara, and congratulations. Really exciting. This is a piece of scrapbook paper. I loved it. I thought it fit the theme really well, the color scheme really well. It is a little out of place just based on the themes that I've got going on, but I thought it was nice to kind of punch it up. I didn't want to add anything to it. I really wrestled with the idea of making like a journal spot on it, but in the end I just added some texture paste and I love it. This page I used a stencil and hickory smoke distress ink and tumbled glass distress ink and just made this, stenciled through it onto the page, and I'm really happy with it. It's very simple and elegant, and I didn't, add a lot of bulk because at the point I made this, I was really struggling with adding more bulk. This page is another one of the ones I decorated. It is coffee dyed paper that I attempted to make texture on with some salt, and you can kind of feel it a little bit. But then I painted over it with blue acrylic paint and silver and just all kinds of things. I found this in my stash. It actually is another thing that came from Bonnie. Thank you. It was very reminiscent of like winter wind, so I added it to this page, and then just a little cluster over here that says winter, a die cut leaf I cut out on the Cricut, more of that, this page tab over here, more of that paper behind it. Very simple, and I like it. The back of that page, I added a distress spray through the stencil, and I really like the way it looked just as a blank page. Here I have another envelope. I decided to just take a picture of this polar bear on an iceberg, and I used more of the craft punches to make this little piece sticking out the top, and also this picture was cut a little small, so that kind of hid that. And this, I also did more collage. I like this collage better than the one on the other envelope. And those, the leftover paper from making the snowflake die cuts, I used them there. I thought it was really cool to have the different textures and images, colors come through. It just felt right. Another poem. The Snowman by Wallace Stevens. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold a long time to behold the junipers shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter of the January sun, and not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind, in the sound of a few leaves, which is the sound of the land, full of the same wind that is blowing in the same bare place for the listener, who listens in the snow, and nothing himself beholds, nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is. Again, this was really reminiscent of like the quietude of winter, and it really worked for me. I backed it on a piece of scrapbook paper that I had, it was a scrap page lying around, and I used some silver scrapbook paper on the back. And it barely fits. This page, another one of those painted pages, double tuck spot here. I only have one thing in it though. This says the Cherish. It was another faux postage stamp like the one on the January tag that was very plain near the front of the book, and actually might have been in a similar tuck spot. I don't know. This white flower die cut, or white flower, it's not even a flower. This white butterfly from a craft punch. This tag says, "Time is precious, waste it wisely." I used a Tim Holtz stencil with the tumbled glass ink to make this pattern. Added some silver washi tape across the top and bottom because the stencil didn't go any further. And a snowflake die. And the back of this says, a fine sentiment. I love to waste my time crafting. It brings me such joy. It doesn't bring in any money yet, but it still holds so much value for me. Here's to hoping my crafting becomes lucrative in the future. All about that manifesting. Here is another journal page. I added some scrapbook paper and then this die cut leaf, and I decided to finally try out embossing powders. So I got a few things, and I think this might be the only thing I've actually embossed in this journal. A little washi tape to hold it down, but I love it. I'm definitely going to be using more of that. Decided to give embossing powder a try. It's now become a favorite thing. I embossed the edges of the leaf die cut on this page. Now I want to emboss all the things. I guess another flip through the journal is in order. What else can I sprinkle this amazing magic powder on? Nothing, apparently, because I did not find anything else in my flip through to add it to. Whoops. More stencils on a piece of scrapbook paper. This page was maybe the third one I did. I really like it. I had the small partial page sewed into the signature, and I just glued it down to make this pocket. Did some collaging. Added this snowflake stencil piece, a button with some thread on it, another snowflake stamp, good vibes. This tag is part of a printable that I found on Pinterest, and I added some eyelash yarn and some other funky yarn for the tag topper. So this tag comes from a free printable I found on Pinterest. I added some eyelash yarn to the eyelid at the top, and voila, instant work of art. I'm also pretty proud of the collage on this page. Love it. Here, this page is pretty simple. I am a big fan of Neil Gaiman, and I found this quote, "We have an obligation to daydream," that was quoted to him, and I wanted to use it because I spend a lot of time in the winter reminiscing. Like, that's just what winter is about to me, reminiscing, daydreaming, planning the future, you know, what the spring will hold, and really just kind of ruminating in the winter. I added some texture paste snowflakes, which, because I used the distress spray, they took on some of the color. That's okay. Added a silver tag, added a silver tab I cut out with a craft punch that, again, came from Bonnie's stash. And a die cut I cut out with my Cricut, a little bit of lace, called it done. This page is one of my favorites. I got a tutorial from Barbara at 49 Dragonflies for making a fold-out page and ran with it. I wanted to use the tab to denote where it was so that I could find it easily. This was also my favorite page, like, that I used in the journal for the signatures. It was beautiful. My daughter made it with distress sprays and acrylic paint, and it just, I almost hated to cover it up, as you can see just how beautiful it was. And you can still see it when it's not open all the way, but I was really proud with the way she did this, and I wanted to utilize it in a way that you could still see it, but that had something really, like, impactful. And this pansy was the answer, in my opinion. This page, I just put some snowflakes on. I think this might have been the last page I decorated, actually. So yeah, it worked for me. I wanted something simple because I got a lot going on over here. This was the other part of the half page from here that I glued down. I didn't want to make it the same, but it worked well as a pocket. So I took more of that goodie bag, or actually the rest of that goodie bag that I did from the page where I made it a pocket, and hand sewed it around. I wrapped it around this page and hand sewed the bottom and this inside edge to make a pocket. It's actually a double pocket. And this side I have this beautiful watercolor image. I found it on Pinterest, and just had to have it. It fits so well. It says, "This is another Pinterest found piece of ephemera. It's a watercolor painting. I wanted it to be seen while in a pocket, so I used more of the snowflake goodie bag, which I sewed by hand around a small piece of paper. I love the way it turned out. And I did nothing to this but glue it down to a piece of cardstock and then inked around it. It was too beautiful to change. So it lives here, where it looks like it's even an even snowier scene. This side does not have, it's a pocket as well, but it doesn't have anything in it. This is the image that this tab paper came from the bottom of. And while it's not exactly a winter scene, it works. I love the way the moon looks over here and this flower. It's just, the color scheme was right. And I had this little piece of, oh gosh, what's it called? Vellum. It says magical moments. You can't really see it because it's so dark. And I used some washi tape to help hold it down. Here, more of that masterboard as a belly band. I added some die cut butterflies, some die cut snowflake and leaf, and the last of the flowers from that prompt list. This tag I decorated with distress sprays. I think I'm not sure which one I used, but I really liked the way it turned out. I've got a brad up here in the shape of a snowflake. That also came from Bonnie's stash. The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy. I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre gray, and winter's dregs made desolate the weakening eye of day. The tangled vine stems scored the sky like strings of broken lyres, and all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fires. And it's blank on the back. This page, I made a tuck spot out of another piece of the stencil negative. I had these stickers that look like duct tape with words on them. This one says believe, and I added a few pieces of scrap paper around it for little accents and a snowflake sticker. This is another little booklet made with the magazine subscription cards. Covered them in scrapbook paper and used washi tape to bind it. Wrote journal on it, little snowflake die cuts, and yeah, that's that. In it, I wrote, a journal within a journal. These pages were a lot of fun to make. This journal was a bit irksome due to the washi tape refusing to stick down over the edges, but I am pleased with the results. Yet again, one of my favorite magazine flowers comes into play, this time gracing a belly band. The belly band is part of the masterboard I made using a prompt from my prompt jars. I really like the way the masterboard turned out and will definitely be using collage masterboards in the future. And this still refuses to stay down. Shake my fist. I added a little bit of that sparkly lace that you've seen in other parts to stick out. I like the idea of things sticking out the edges of the page, so it's a lot of fun. This page, this is the envelope flap from the other envelope with the polar bear on it. I used some tumbled glass, distress oxide, and some hickory smoke. The tumbled glass, I used my dauber and just kind of made it look like a sky. I don't know if you can see that. A couple of stencil negatives ripped out and glued down. Some lace in the edge. And then this is from a printable from the same place I got the other. Where'd it go? Oh no. I can't find it now. The same place that this one, this tag came from, the same printable as this tag. I did not journal on this. I have another ticket that I stamped onto this piece, and they just looked so good sitting in there that I had to. It's a little triangular pocket. I did not glue this side, I just glued it here, and this is the opening. Here I've got some snippet roll used to make a tiny pocket, and some texture paste through the snowflake stencils. And this is another piece of the master board. And this quote was on a stamp that I had. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. And that's quoted to J.R.R. Tolkien, who I am a huge fan of. Added a couple of snowflake stickers. And on the back, I added some scrapbook paper and wrote, "Being the nerd that I am, I needed to have a Tolkien quote in at least one of my journals. This one seemed quite appropriate. To me, winter is a time of reflection, of planning for future endeavors. I find this quote works well in that regard." There we go. Another blank page. I love how wintry it seems. And paired with this, this is an envelope with the blue mesh ribbon over it. And I glued it here, here, and here so that it is a pocket. I just don't have anything in it because it's very delicate. And I glued the envelope down so that it would be a fold-out flap. In the envelope, I have this big tag that I made. It's just a piece of scrapbook paper with a torn out piece of book page that had a stenciled snowflake on it. On the back it says, "This is another page I'm not too thrilled with. The concept was a good one. My execution, maybe not so much. The mesh on the front of the envelope could be another pocket provided the glue holds." Yeah, I struggled with this one. I decorated the envelope with the distress sprays and some acrylic paint splatter, silver and white. These snowflake stencils, I used a metallic blue paint, and I don't think they work well. I glued the flap down and then tried to do a little collage triangle over it, and it just, yeah, I'm not in love with it. I think this is probably my favorite part, the 2 die cuts, and then this little cluster piece thing I got going on over here. That's probably my favorite part, but I'm not going to think too hard on it. I do like the way these 2 pages kind of reflect a similar vibe with the snowiness going on. This is the other part of that page that I said kind of stuck out like a sore thumb, but I like it. And I added more of that page, the winter image from the bird, and made it a tuck spot. Added a little bit of that blue mesh up here as a little like sticker outer, little piece sticking out. I have this tag I made I cut this out of a piece of scrapbook paper, and the quote says, "Winter is the time for comfort, for good food and warmth, for the touch of a friendly hand, and for a talk beside the fire. It is the time for home." And that's quoted to Edith Sitwell. In the back, I just have some of this blue paper, but I really like the way it turned out. It's a little warmer toned than some of the other things in the journal, which is why I stuck it on this page, because of all the brown. It seemed to work for me. This page I left blank. It's another one that I decorated with distress sprays and watercolor paints. We're getting towards some of my favorite pages. Another double tuck spot here and here. A little cluster using more die cut, or using more craft punches, and a piece of scrapbook paper. I just ripped that out. Another faux postcard. Here is the other half of that envelope pocket, and I dyed the envelope with tumbled glass and hickory smoke distressed inks with water and the acrylic block again. Added this die cut that I cut out with the Cricut. I've got a craft punch butterfly that I cut out of a piece of foil that comes in like the top of like a food package, you know, like I think it was nuts or something like that. And I just pulled that out and used the craft punch on it. I added a few small sequins to the body, some lace and some fabric. This tag has a Robert Frost poem, Dust of Snow. The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree, has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I rued. I thought that was really cute. And I've got some more of those snowflakes. On the back, I used the Dauber and the Hickory Smoke Distress ink to kind of make it look like a cloudy sky, so that when you flip, it's a nice contrast. And this is a very grayish blue page, and it just worked well for me. This was another book page that had a stencil negative on it. This is scrapbook paper with some words I found in a free printable, falling snow, snowball fights, lots of snowflakes. This page, I have a fabric pocket. I sewed around it to make the pocket, and kind of give it the seam. Added this piece of lace glued across the top and some of that yarn, that really fun yarn from the tag. Added January. I did on the background, I used the acrylic ink dropper to drop. It kind of looked like ice. I'm not really pleased with the way it turned out, but it's all right. Another one of the faux postcards, not postage stamp. What am I thinking? This is a tiny little page, and I really like the way it turned out. I got a little cluster collage thing going on, forget-me-not, faux postage stamp, a little bit of candy foil, and some more of that metallic paper. And on the back, it is it has the stencil negative. Final page, I have image from the polar bear, from the polar bear image. I have created a tuck spot from some of the leftover paper from that photo. Added some snowflake die cuts, this one particularly off the edge. I have a little bead, I don't know if you can see it, but I added an eyelet and a little bit of some beads. Thought that was cute. And the tag, this is more of the paint pour cardstock that I did. I stamped this bird on a piece of blue book page. It says, "If you want to fly, give up everything that weighs you down." And that's quoted to Buddha. Do a little collage clusters with some snowflakes. And on the back, I put some scrapbook paper. And I journaled. The final page in my journal is one I am proud of. The same goes for this tag. This has been a month-long, wonderful journey, full of lessons in patience and the stretching of creative muscles. There are definitely a few things I would do differently, but the final product is one I am proud of accomplishing. This is my first completed junk journal. May many more follow. Dated January 26th, 2023. That was the day I went through and added extras and did some journaling, and it was the last day that I officially worked in this journal. So really pleased with this, just all around. The last page is more of that watercolor paper. Oh yeah, that's right, I sewed that in with the sewing machine. I forgot about that. Then I've got the double tuck spots back here that don't have anything in them. More snowflakes gracing that. So there it is. The completed January junk journal. Was it everything you hoped it would be? Because it was for me. There were, like I said, a few pages that I wasn't incredibly happy with. I feel like they could have been done a little differently. I did a couple of times feel a little rushed to get to the deadline that I placed on myself for like the next video coming out. But overall, I'm incredibly proud of this. It's complete, or feels completed. There, like I said, there were a few things that didn't quite feel that way, but I'm not going to focus on that right now. I'm going to instead shift my attention to the February journal and go from there, which has a totally different color scheme than this, one that I'm not used to using. So, yeah, thank you. If you have watched all of these videos, thank you so much for sticking with me. I've had so much fun over the course of this month working in this journal, just really expressing myself creatively and having a blast. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. It's been really fun, and I've learned a lot, and I can't wait to see what February is going to bring. So thank you again. I hope you have a great day. See you in the next one. Bye.